now, this is what's going on. So the Dogon were a people that was able to preserve that particular culture. So therefore, since the Dogon had the greatest astronomical science knowledge of what's going on in the cosmos based on the star system, Sirius, that is equivalent to the ancient Egyptians, so therefore they would be the ultimate group that would understand that when we talk about the mythology, or when Nomo, which is in the sign of a Christ, sign of a fish, which is also the sign of a Christ, which is the front cover of the book Pale Fox. But if you can't get that book, because a lot of it's out of print, and you can get some of them, every now and then you can come across and get the Sirius mystery. Nomo, which was the actual Christ, they understood in actuality, if we're going to find out when the Christ is coming back, and for the Illuminati to understand that that is a Christ energy among black people, we must understand the Dogon's system of Nomo when they do this sacred ceremony called the Sigi ceremony that they do every 50 years, 50 to 60 years. And in the Egyptian part, it was called the Henti ceremony. H-E-N-T-I, Henti ceremony. And the Sigi ceremony, so in the Dogon, it was called the Henti ceremony. I mean the Egyptian. And all, which meant end of a period of time or the end of eternity, or what they mean eternity as far as eternity that we think is the earth is eternity. It just means at the end of this digital time on the earth. And all, based on when does the earth have this great birthday. So the Dogon, by doing the Sigi ceremony, understood, was the only ones that could understand that. Now you get the particular information, there's 3 copies left of the Sirius Mystery, which is like a Bible. It's like everyone should own a copy of the Sirius Mystery. A lot of the black scholars didn't like it because a white man wrote it. Well, hell, if you look in the back of them same idiots' book, they got a bibliography and all that shit is written by white people. You see what I'm saying? You see? So then again, on the other hand, we talk about ego here, when in actuality, we know that the spirits possess them, and they become slaves, which I'll get into it later on, slaves to do a particular work for us. So all this metaphysical stuff is not written for them. It's written for them. It's written by them, thinking they write it for themselves, but the gods are making them write it for us. So everybody should have a copy of the Sirius Mystery. You see what I'm saying? A copy of the Sirius Mystery. So based on the Sigi ceremony, let me get my paper first. Based on the Sigi ceremony that we're talking about here, we know that once the Dogon do this particular dance, in this sacred dance that they did in 1934, and 60 years from that, when they did it again in 1994, but it was some discrepancies on when it was going to be done. The show that came on In Search Of in 1973 came on and talked about this elaborate ceremony. They said when we walked up on the Dogon, they were getting ready for what they told us was a funeral. They said, but what we later found out, it was an elaborate ceremony called the Sigi ceremony. It is done every 50 to 60 years. Basically, 60 years is the real accurate time. Done every 60 years. That is actually the birthday of Nomo. So two Dogon Sigi ceremonies is worth one Egyptian Henti ceremony. The Henti ceremony is done every 120 years. The Sigi ceremony is done every 60 years, period, you'll have 2 Sigis. You see what I'm saying? And at the end, it's called the birthday of Osiris in Egypt, which is the birthday of God, or the Christ, if you want to say, or the birthday of Nomo. So now we got a direct relationship of the Christ energy when it's coming back. Because we know it's the Christ energy that's going to come into a whole group of people other than one person coming back, because the Sigi ceremony has already been done in 1994. April 23rd, 1994, the Sigi ceremony was done. And key crucial things happened in that year. That year we invoked the entity called Thunderdog, which, might I add, which is a Native American form of the Christ of the dog star. At that same year, the O.J. Simpson trial came down that we know as the ancient trial of Amenta, where they said when the trial of Amenta happened in the papyrus of the heretical papyrus of the British Museum, say one thing comes out of this trial of 2 opposing forces of good and evil. We will have a hieroglyphic. In that particular part We'll have a hieroglyphic that looked like this all through the papyrus that means separation. That means separation. Even in your Bible, they talk about a time when Jesus Christ is going to come, and what he's going to do. He's going to separate the sheep from the goat nations. The sheep nations is the one of woolly hair, and God is my shepherd, I shall not want. The goat nation is one of straight hair. And straight hair and all that type of thing and all this. Don't eat paper and all kind of shit. The goat nation and all. The sheep, you see what I'm saying? Even the vagina looks like, is more close to a woman. That's why the cracker used to screw their sheep. You see what I'm saying? And they had a law in the United States that you couldn't be caught with a sheep after sundown. That's the law in the book to this day. So we're talking about the great separation of the trial, and we saw that separation on one of the greatest days ever in the history of Black America that was celebrated on damn Thursday. Was a year ago, the O.J. Simpson trial, which was what? October the 3rd of 1995, which is 10/13, a 10th month, and 3 is 13, and 13 is an unlucky number for the white man. Might I add, 13 is a number for the star system Sirius also, too. You got 12 disciples, you got the 13th man, which is the Christ, which is the star system Sirius, which is the Sirius is in you. Now, so that's one which is trial of a mentor. That is also in the Heretic Papyrus of the British Museum of a great trial that will be held in the time will separate their nations. Well, we know that it was just split down the middle. Black, you seen the thing when black people were jumping up and white people all quiet. Because their existence and their reality is different than ours. You see what I'm saying? So now that went on in but the O.J. Simpson trial thing started with the murder in 1994. Also in 1994, you had the white buffalo that was actually born. It's the Indian prophecy. You see what I'm saying? And since then, they've had another white buffalo, which makes it an even greater prophecy. So this is the Siggy ceremony. So since we know it's not necessarily the Christ of a one man coming back, we know that they was actually talking about a Christ people. Because in the esoteric version of everything, Christ is a group of people and a whole race of people other than one person. You see what I'm saying? Other than one person. And they're talking about you coming back. Well, everything has a body. So the Christ at the head of the church, it just meant the remnant. The 144,000, which is the symbolic number. It just means 144,000, a percentage of billions of people. So it's not just talking about an accurate 144,000 people. Hell, that ain't enough damn people to come back. And we got more niggas in the United States than that. Got more black people in New York than that. That ain't work, but it's talking about a symbolic number of the first remnant, the light bringers, which in fact is us that we're discussing this now. That's why we're here today discussing this thing. It has nothing to do with necessarily the techniques. It was already been prophesied in certain laws that when you put a law out, when that law manifests and that law comes to its full manifestation, it's just going to happen anyway because we were the gods that set this shit down for us years before we went to sleep. We literally carved out things on this is going to happen at this certain time, this is going to happen at this certain time, and this is going to happen at this certain time. But it's not necessarily a date no more than it is a cycle. It's just that the Dogon was able to calculate the cycle based on a date because they were the only ones advanced enough to do it. You see what I'm saying? And that type of thing. So if we're talking about energy don't go necessarily a date, but it goes based on when that energy gets to its full part. And we actually know that that's happening now. So it can be tomorrow. It can be next week. It can be on into the next year. But I never look beyond right now. Because this is what we're dealing with now, because they're killing niggas now. Check. Okay. Let's go on. We have the Temple of Dendera. The Temple of Heru or Hathor at Dendera. And this is the oldest calendar in the world, which is 90,000 years old, that was actually created in Atlantis. And the Egyptologists tore our old temple in the Ptolemy period, and they got an actual blueprint to build the other temple out of the cracks of the wall. Out of the cracks of the wall of this particular temple. And so the blueprints are 90,000 years old when you talk about the Temple of Dendera, which I'll get you outside of that particular Dendera, that particular calendar. The breakdown of the Temple of Dendera, that calendar, the great breakdown of that calendar is both in Swallow de Luby's book, Sacred Science, and also but the best breakdown is in Gerald Massey's Book of the Beginning, Volume 2, which there's a set that is still back there. Gerald Mass's book at the beginning, volume 2, is the greater breakdown of the particular zodiac of Dendera, which is older than any calendar that the white man has. It is based around the circumference of the star system Sirius, and don't have nothing to do with the Gregorian calendar, which in fact is damn near 5 or 6 years off. 5 or 6 years off. So they're saying, when is the Aquarian age of the year 2000? The year 2000 has been here. It's been here, at least we know the year 2000 was here when the Dogon did the Sirius ceremony. And now what it's called the null time. The null zone. The null zone. There's a guy by the name of Zeus, Robert Shapiro, wrote a book called what's the name of the book he wrote? Explorer Race. And in there he'll talk about the null zone. And it's the null zone. And in that particular null zone, they're talking about a particular time. It's an end time. There is no more such thing as time. Because in actuality, time, there's no such thing as space and time anyway. But a certain time when this cycle ends up, there's no more such time as the year 2000. When it happened, it can happen today, it can happen tomorrow, but it's not enough certain amount of time that you calculate or not. Even the white man knows that. That's why he made his move 5 years ago in 1990. 10 years ago with the drugs. 15 years ago with the AIDS. Atlanta child murders. You understand what I'm saying? He made his move that particular time because he understood that it was over by the time that the Dogon said it was over was the year 2000. So we do know that if we're going to look at any type of time when it's over, we know when the Dogon did the Sirius ceremony, he marked the year 2000. So when is the time for us to get serious? The time for us to get serious is what, 3 years ago. Or when you come to the knowledge that now is the time of the alarm clock to say shit. Nothing else matters. Now it's time to just do what the hell we gotta do. Okay, I will continue my life doing what I'm supposed to do, just keep bread on the table. That's given. You see what I'm saying? While in the process. So people always get defensive. Well, hell, I gotta keep bread on the table. That's already given. That's like saying, man, I gotta goddamn take a shit when it's time to take a shit. What the hell does that gotta do with the price of goddamn coffee in China? See what I'm saying? That's given. What the fuck does that gotta do with what the hell we gotta do? That's real. Check. You see what I'm saying? So now, the story is, the Dogon story is that Amma had one son, which is this particular evil son, that was not all the way created. As a result, he came down, his name was Ogu, and he created the earth, which is his placenta. And as a result, she sent her son to be reincarnated as man down here called Nomo. And later on, he would stand up and challenge Ogu and destroy Ogu, and this is his ark, which is the Dogon's rendition of a spaceship. Is rendition of the spaceship, and they said that the Nomos came from the star system Sirius. Also, the Dogon rendition of the spaceships you'll see, and all of these you'll see is this one is in the book The Pale Fox. This one is in the in-print book, which is the book where you see these particular space capsules, which is in which is the Sirius mystery, which is also the Sirius mystery. And so he will challenge Nomo, which in actuality, God is curiosity, after I said last week. The God that has a group of people on the earth, God is for fire and brimstone, is going to chastise you, because he's too jealous to say, well, hell, if I created this mug, and I know what this person is about, why the hell I gotta have this person serve me? Not unless that person, you only get jealous of somebody because the person has something greater than you. So we have something greater than the God of what you call the God of religion. I went through all that last week. So we know now up until this particular point that any day now it can go. And as a result, we have seen so many things that materialize at the same time. Wasn't it funny that the white man would come out in 1994, the same year the Sirius ceremony, he would come out with a movie called Stargate? Yeah. And isn't it funny that the model that he copied Stargate is also coming from The Matrix? The book The Matrix, in this particular book, was out years before the Stargate came out. In actuality, there was information that in actuality that was a port for spaceships, but not necessarily in the physical. But that's the way we view things. Now, let's go on, because I want to deal with some things here. I told you about a tribe that had a shipwreck in Tibet called the Zopa tribe, or called the Drupka tribe, or the Drupka tribe. The name of the book is called Carl Robin Evans' book. I got a little passage in this little book here. But the name of the book is called Carl Robin Evans' book, called Sun Gods in Exile. Is the name of the book. It is the name of the book. Sun Gods in Exile. And that particular tribe that's one that supposedly had gotten shipwrecked. That has supposedly gotten shipwrecked in Tibet. The Drupka, or the Drupka, Drupa is a secret set of the Thunder Dragon, has brought to Earth 12,000 years ago and established in the plateau somewhere between China and Tibet. And it says in a particular part called Bhutan, this particular Drupka religion and all flourished in a part called Bhutan. A guy by the name of John Levy is another book in the bibliography other than Carl Robin Evans that also talks about this particular actual tribe. And all. So this is also some tribes that we deal with. Also, I should have brought the picture again. I showed you the picture of the black woman and the black man, and they sure did look like Negroes to me. Look like some brothers up here on the corner. And that particular thing also too. Look like some brothers up on the actual corner. In a book called Messengers of Deception, I can't think of the actual guy's name. He also talked about this extraterrestrial government called UMO. And UMO is a modified word of Nomo, which is also us. So the extraterrestrial government everybody talking about is us. Now, also we deal with they said that the Dogon told you that there were 3 planets or 3 other stars around Sirius. And those 3 stars were Sirius A, Sirius B, and Sirius C. That was only seen once by a certain group of people in 1950. In 1950. Now, in this particular book called The Egyptian Revival, which is a guy by the name of Fred Atchett, who was supposed to have been a spiritual son of Aleister Crowley. And he says this. He says, there was a particular part, he said that around Sirius, there were 7 other planets around Sirius. There were 7 other planets that were also around Sirius, the Sirius star system. Now, mind you, we're talking about this particular information about that, but when we go into the real science about it, it says, no, the divine name Kelba, which is the top part of the tree of life, that I'll get a picture of the tree of life in a minute, the tree of life, which this particular part of the tree of life is called Kelba, but the reflection is actually behind it. So there was a circle called dark, and it's actually reflecting behind it. They say this particular part called Kelba, the premium mobile is in the Egyptian sense is Sirius, the dog star, the star of Isis Sophis. Around it is 7 planets. The nude figure in its symbolism is Isis of Nephthys or Het Heru. Het Heru. So in actuality, they're saying that there's these particular planets and stuff, but in actuality, what we're dealing with here, we're not dealing with something as physical as we think it is. When we go deeper into what we're going to deal with tonight also too. What we're going to deal with also tonight. Now, the Draconian cult is a cult of the dragon of the deep space. It brought to earth the Ophidian cult worshipped by the ancient Typhonians of Egypt under the symbol of Apep, and is used by the Typhonian order. Now, the Draconian I mentioned last week was one of the oldest names. One of the original names of our particular energy or our particular dimension before we came to the earth was called the Ophidian cult also too. These are also things. The Ophidian cult is also one. And all of these particular Draconian and Ophidian was also worshipped in Atlantis and Lemuria. That's where you get the word. The Draconian cult is talking about, even though we have Sirius, and the Sirius is the first part of the first star of the first 7 stars and of the many stars. But Sirius is the vagina in the south gate of the mother. So it's like the clitoris, or it's like the mother reflecting itself. The other is talk about the northern hemisphere, which is called Draco. which is actually the northern hemisphere, and the most height of heaven is called Draco, and that's where you get the word Draconian from, which it means mother. And mother is the triple blackness of space that has to reflect herself by giving light. And she reflects herself through her sun, which is the first of 7 stars, and it is number 8, which is infinity, the first of 7 stars, and she's actually reflecting her own light. It's like the Sirius, the male, is only the shine or the reflection of the great mother. Just like we know that man is nothing but a manifestation of the woman. The woman is the negative current, and the man is the positive. We're not talking about negative in one part. We're talking about yin and yang. One is the apex of the power, and one is the actual manifestation of the power.